All right, everyone, we're going to call this meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, September 24th. It is 5:01 p.m. This is a regularly scheduled budget hearing, the second one. All council members are present, including the town attorney, the deputy town attorney, or town manager, deputy town manager. You got promoted or demoted, I guess. The town attorney and the town clerk. First order of business is public comment.
First up, I have Ellen Vaughn, and then after Ellen is Tom Torgerson.
Good late afternoon to everyone.
Hey, Ellen.
I'm in awe of the amount of effort that you have put into this undertaking. I understand that I didn't stay with you last time, and you were here till after 9, so I applaud your diligence in this activity. And I'm standing here to encourage you to please vote to increase the millage. I know this is a challenge for a lot of people on the island, but I've talked to many people that agree that I did pull up the millage rates, and we're among the lowest of the self-governing parts of the county, and our needs are great. And if we're going to be a successful community again, we need services, and we need reasons to have people to want to come to this town. And things like Bay Oaks and the Mound House are among them. And so we need funding for those, and I recognize that there are other things that certainly need funding. We have to have the roads fixed. We have to have a lot of things done. Last time I just said I really like infrastructure. I do like infrastructure. I like all those aspects of infrastructure that make us a community. Please help us stay a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Tom Torgerson, that's all I have signed up.
Tom?
My first time at the new dais. Feels really good. It's beautiful. I, too, am here to advocate for the tax increase. I'm a conservative person by nature, so you could say it goes a little against my grain, but I think we could all agree pretty quickly that these are not normal times and not normal circumstances. And, I don't know the details like all of you do, so I can't speak to the details. But cutting services, it just isn't a time for that. I think that there's probably opportunity to charge for some services, but not get crazy. But to cut them, I really don't see that as in our best interest, short-term, long-term. I kind of view this as, I'm come out of the business world, and I kind of use an analogy, whether it's good or bad, out of the business world. And businesses go through their cycles, and they usually don't go through Hurricane Ians, but they do go through cycles. And there's a time when you can reap the rewards of their successes, and there's a time when reinvestment just needs to happen, and they need a little help, a lot of help sometimes, to rejuvenate them and propel them on into the future. And it's a time when the owners just have to invest money back in and reinvent themselves and propel themselves forwards. And then there'll be positive times again. It's just, it's an unusual circumstance. I think that it's time. I also could say, I don't know if I'm running out of time, but I look at the town's piece of the overall tax bill that all of us pay, and it's so small. I think the town has a long-standing history of financial, fiscal responsibility, government light. I don't think that we've been aggressive in the history of this town. I'm very proud that it's been run the way that it has and as it is today. And I'm all for reinvesting in the recovery of this island. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Only one other person?
Mary?
Would you like to? Moral support. All right, then we will close public comment. Talk to Nancy about our public hearings. We're going to do it a little bit different than what we've been accustomed to over the last 5 years. We don't have to open and close like we did last time. Go ahead, Nancy, I'll let you explain.
Comment, so the Florida statute requires that the first order item of business for you to review is the proposed ad valorem millage rate. Along with that, in that presentation, there is a representation as to what budgeted items are necessary or have been requested to support that particular millage rate. So it somewhat blends. So I believe that it would be appropriate to go ahead and follow that procedure in that order. I think that staff is prepared to present that, and then, based on whatever your determination is as far as millage, we would announce the millage rate. We would fill in the blanks on the resolution that is in your packet. You would take a vote, and then we would proceed on to the budget, and we would ask for a motion that would be consistent with your prior discussion during the millage rate discussion. And then the fee schedule would be a separate item.
So to try to unlawyer it a little bit, can I say it this way? Before, we would table item A, which is the millage rate setting, and then go down to discuss the budget, have all the discussions, then table that, go back and do the millage rate. Essentially, what we're doing is just reversing it. We'll discuss the budget items under the millage rate to then set the millage rate. Then when we go to the budget, it's just basically confirming what we've already discussed, as opposed to
Correct.
opening and closing
So
and
the
going back.
beginning of the conversation is regarding the millage rate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So our first item is A, it's Resolution 25-278, the final fiscal year 26 ad valorem millage rate. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final ad valorem millage rate for the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida at, soon to be determined, which is blank for each 1,000 of assessed valuation and is a percentage greater than the rollback rate of .8954 mils for fiscal year 2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund and providing an effective date. Take it away, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Onzik, the Finance Director for the Town of Fort Myers Beach. I'd like to begin by thanking our Budget Manager, Cassandra Penner, who prepared this presentation for us, and all the work that went into that. So to begin with, where we're really starting with is where we left off at the first hearing. So that is our starting point. There, the adopted tentative millage rate of 1.15 was approved, and that 1.15 millage rate is 28.43% over the rolled back rate. Then this just gives you an idea of what we're going to be, our presentation will cover. So we're going to go over the changes that were included as a result of the first budget hearing. We'll run through a summary of the FY26 budget as it stands, and then we'll move on to the actual millage rate decision.
Joe,
Yes.
if I could, just for folks who may be watching, I think the number's obviously important, 1.15, but I think the public is, in part, watching to determine percentage increase. For example, the initial meeting prior to our first budget meeting, there was a suggested cap on the maximum millage rate, which translated into a 26% increase in the millage rate. And I believe at the first budget meeting, there was a reduction in that cap to roughly 13%. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. The 13% you're referencing correlates to it being a 1.15 millage rate increase instead of the 1.255, I believe, was 255, yes.
Okay, I just think that'll help people track this conversation. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So as a result of the first budget hearing, it was decided to adjust the millage rate down to 1.15. And that was the tentative millage rate. Then, as a result of discussion and consensus from the town council, we added back funding for the July fireworks, and this is what we as a staff did to act upon the suggestions by town council. So we added back, given the fact that we had the 1.15 millage rate, which would bring in an additional $719,000, we added back $100,000 to cover July fireworks. We added $25,000 for community policing or the sheriff's services to go along with the fireworks. We added back the Bay Oaks staffing that had been cut. So that was adding back into the budget $136,350. And then we added the remainder, the remaining difference between those items and the $719,000 was the $458,000 that will now become available for any state appropriations that may become available to us next year to apply for. So those are the basic changes that we made with that additional revenue.
Joe, before you go on, I think it's important we discuss about that, because this 719,000 would be what the increase in funding would be from the 1.15.
Yes, that's correct.
And this is what staff is recommending that increase would be used for?
Well, what we're trying to present is what came out of the discussion from town council at that evening. So then we went on and built the budget accordingly. And then as a staff, we do have additional changes, which I'll present at the very end, which would incorporate some new information that we're able to consider, especially concerning the emergency fund. But we had to post a budget initially based on what was decided at the first hearing. And so I'm just trying to run through what changed from the one that was presented at the first hearing to the one that we left with after the decisions were made after the first hearing. And then tonight, we have to make decisions to fine tune it further. And those are the recommendations that we'll have for you at the end of this presentation, does that make sense?
It does. If I'm sitting at home watching this, I'm looking at a 1.15 suggested rate to raise it, and $125,000 of fireworks. That's what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember from the first meeting, a majority of people saying that we were in favor of supporting a $100,000 fireworks show anymore.
I would concur with that.
Now, if that $125,000 is to go towards the reserve fund, that's a whole different story for me, but
That's in my, sorry, Mr. Mayor, but as Joe was explaining, that is the recommendation. I can talk about it now, or we can let Joe go
okay, I just
through.
wanted to make sure.
It was our understanding, from coming out of the last meeting, that there were certain things that council wanted us to look at, and as we come back with a 1.150, and these were some of those that you wanted us to look at.
Okay.
Additional discussions, and myself with the staff, is that yes, my priority recommendation to you, which will come later, is for the reserve emergency fund, and as priorities over even what you see here, is emergency fund and grant matching for that 719,000.
Okay. Sorry if I got ahead of myself there, Joe. If people at home I know are watching this, and that's the first thing that I would think of if I was sitting there.
The opportunity to clarify, yeah.
Okay. Then additional changes since the first budget hearing, we were trying to fine tune the budget a little further. We became aware of an additional mooring field grant of $51,000. So that, of course, helped the mooring field and hence to our revenues. On the expense side, we realized there was an error in the head count for the mooring field. The mooring field coordinator is actually a full-time position, so we needed to reflect that in the budget by adding the $35,000 to that budget. We added the town clerk training budget, the $3,000. We added that back in. We added $12,850 to the Bay Oak Special Events and Youth Program, and then another change that was made that came out of the meeting was to increase the mooring field fees. And we did so, that was enough to increase the revenue by $35,000. By doing so, it decreases the amount we need from the bridge loan by $35,000. State appropriations, so they were not included necessarily in the budget that was previously presented to you, but these were appropriations that we did receive from the state. We were awarded those from the state, but they had not been incorporated into the budget. So this slide is what we did, and it is incorporated in the version of the budget you now have before you. So there's $1.2 million of grant, so there's $585,000 to go towards road repairs out of the gas tax fund. There's $350,000, I believe, for the, is it the North Water, it's North Tower? South Tower building repairs, and then we have stormwater repairs for downtown for $292,000. All of those grants require matching funds, and so there's matching funds coming out of the gas tax fund, the water fund, and the stormwater fund for the same total amount. And then, of course, the entire project would be the double those amounts, so it'd be $2.4 million. So all of that's added into the budget now. The bridge loan status, this is just to update it once again. It's basically the same. I think the amount that we'll be using for the bridge loan is slightly reduced as a result of that additional mooring field revenue. The position count, this is just the comparison of the changes by department. Total changes from FY25 to FY26 is unchanged here. General fund revenue by source. So I'm just kind of running through now just the overall budget summary as we're required to do. And this is again based on that 1.15 millage rate increase. So this is the listing of our revenues in the general fund in descending order by the percentage contribution. So ad valorem taxes is the largest source of revenue for the town at 27%. And then our charges for services, which primarily includes parking and other things, is almost 23%. And then, of course, you have the bridge loan, and then what's transferred in from other areas. We have other taxes, 1.2 million. So this is just a summary of everything that we've presented previously, and here it is again. General fund expense by category. So we have wages, services, benefits, liability insurance. Those are the categories. And again, it's in descending order of cost to the town. So you can see that wages is almost 34%, services 24%. So that would be like our contractual services, and then benefits 15.5%, insurance 8.5%. Those are the largest items. General fund expense categories by year. So this compares the FY26 budget to the FY25 budget by those same categories. You can see how most of them have gone down, other than benefits has gone up and services has gone up. General fund expenses by department. So this is just a year-over-year comparison by department. It's just the dollar amount change. And then again, it adds up to the same figure of a total of $552,000 increase year over year. This is the sources of revenue as a percent of the total. And this is for all the funds, not just the general fund. So in comparison then, ad valorem tax revenue is smaller because we're talking about all the funds. Charges for services is a large amount because now we're talking about charges for water and sewer, stormwater. So those are the revenues that are coming from that. And then license, permits, and fees is about 3.8%. Loan proceeds with the 15.6%, and then the use of reserves is almost 37%. And then this kind of details out the use of reserves, so you can see, because it is a large number, where it's all coming from. So we have the Estero Boulevard landscaping, that was the result of the ILA with Lee County that we're still carrying forward to be used for next year of $782,000. And then this is the balance that's available in the road impact and the parks impact funds that is available for spending. We're planning on using 1.7 million of the bridge loan with the latest figures of revenues that we're using. The FDEM hurricane recovery, this is the entire amount of the loan that we have available to us. We're budgeting for the whole amount. We probably won't use it, but we just want to make sure it's available in the budget. And this again is the loan that we received to cover very specific FEMA projects. It's a very limited number of projects, and the total that would be available is $4.4 million. Beach renourishment, 8.4 million. A good portion of that may not actually even be spent. It may be a repayment of a grant that we received that we did not use. And so a good portion of that, I'm just estimating it's around $4 million. So that's about half of the budget is the repayment of that grant. Estero Island lighting project.
Do we know why it wasn't used?
Because we had so much funding for beach renourishment from various sources, whether it's FEMA, we had quite a bit from Lee County, and then that was the Department of Environmental Protection that gave us a large grant. So we had large grants, and we were trying to use the ones that were, well, I guess Chad could probably best answer it, but they were very specific about which sources of funding were used so that they could get the most out of the funding in terms of the grant terms of each grant and what was that it was allowed to be used for. But there are time limits also associated with the grants.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Estero Island lighting project. So that's what remains of the project that should be finished this year. The replacement program, this is just a small amount of the capital budget that we have on hand that's spread out over all the departments to be used to replacing any equipment or that they may need during the year to make any capital repairs throughout the year. So it's something that we budget each year to have available for unexpected things that come up. The building, this is really the building fund, so we're using about $464,000 of the building fund reserve balance, and that balance is the accumulation of permit revenue when that was accumulated immediately after Hurricane Ian when we had so much permit activity happening. Now, we're required to spend that within a certain period of time, and so now that we've shifted over some employees that 75% of their time is used in enforcing Florida Building Code, we're able to use some of that fund balance towards that. And then now we have these state appropriations where we're using gas tax reserve to cover the road appropriation, and then the water, the water fund, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite see that. The water fund of the $350,000 and the stormwater fund of $292,000. Okay, and then the grant revenue. This is just an outline of the grant revenues that we have budgeted. So we have the West Coast Inland Navigational Grant, the WCIND. This is for marine law enforcement. It's budgeted for $25,000, but as you'll see in one of the last slides, we've learned that it's actually $35,000, so there's going to be a correction that's recommended to be made to the budget at the end. But this is what's in the budget now and what's been published online. So we have Mound House grants, $264,000, Newton Park, $53,000, beach maintenance, and this is all TDC or Tourism Development Council grants for those three items. We have the CDBG-DR, which is the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery budget. This is just based on the original timelines that were when the grants were applied for. We had to provide them with a timeline of how the funds would be spent. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen this way, but this is really all we have at the moment to build a budget with. We have a TDC marketing grant for Mound House, $20,000, and then we have those same three state LAP grants, which are the state appropriations that you just saw on a previous slide. And then we have the Clean Vessel Act grant, which helps provide funding for the pump out services for the mooring field. The transfers, this is just to detail the $2.8 million worth of transfers, like where it's coming from. So we have almost $1.6 million coming from the bridge loan to the general fund. We have $137,000 from the bridge loan to help make up the difference in the water fund. The difference between their revenues that they're expecting is in comparison to their expenditures. And then we have the transfer from the general fund to the emergency fund of 500,000, and then the annual transfer to pay our debt service of 581,000. We have all funds expense, so this is all the expenses from all the funds presented as a percent of the entire expense. Again, all funds expense would be $56 million. We have, this is all funds expense by categories, so it's like wages, transfers, services. The same categories as was laid out for the general fund is now laid out for all the funds. And you can see the difference from FY25 to FY26 for each of those. Overall, just it might be good to point out, the overall budget is down almost $10 million from FY25 to FY26. And this is the all funds expense budgets by fund. And so this is a comparison by fund of the budget from FY25 to 26.
Joe, you can't just leave that one on the table there. You said the overall budget is
Yes.
down 10 million from last year?
Yes.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, I mean, partly if you look at like this display, you can see by fund, like where it's coming from. So we've got less. We're not budgeting anything from the American Rescue Act because that will have been completely spent. So that's 877,000. Beach access. Oh, gee, I wished I was more prepared because now I'm trying to remember. So if anyone can remember this, could please jump in and help me. I believe there was beach renourishment funding that was included in beach access last year that is not included this year. So that would account for the 1.3 million. We're using almost half as much of the bridge loan for, well, not half, I guess it's a little more than half, but almost $1.2 million reduction in the bridge loan. In the building side of things, this is the building fund. We had budgeted $3.5 million budget, and that's down $1 million just to cover expenses that were associated with personnel primarily and the services, contractual services that are provided. So that's a significant reduction. Capital, $4.4 million reduction. And I think, a good portion of that capital encompasses quite a few things from, I would say primarily that what's composing that variance would be the Estero Island lighting project. There was probably $3.8 million in the budget from last year. That's no longer in the budget this year. There is also beach renourishment. We're finished with beach renourishment, so that's gone down quite a bit. So that would be, I think, beach renourishment and Estero Boulevard lighting, bridge loan. Those are the big things that have made a difference. And of course, there's beach renourishment and the beach access that's also there. Emergency fund. This might be a little bit deceiving because we only are budgeting 500,000, but there's probably going to be more than that. But because it is an emergency fund, you don't know what you're going to spend until you need to spend it, and so we normally do budget adjustments as needed. So I think it's showing that it's going down by $3 million, but that doesn't necessarily mean that'll play out that way this coming year, as we'll probably be doing budget adjustments. We have the hurricane recovery funds. Last year we budgeted the whole amount of the loan. We hardly used any of it. That's the $225,000 that was used. So we're budgeting the whole amount again for this year. Let's see. The gas tax, I think that's quite a bit more because of we're using the funding for state appropriations, and we're trying to make sure that we are planning on using as much as we possibly can for the road repairs that need to be made. So I think that covers the majority of it. Is there anything else you would like me to focus on? Or
That's helpful, thank you.
okay.
Well, before you go on, though, I think for those at home that maybe aren't following along with that, because it can get very confusing, is, again, people watching at home don't want them to think that, well, it's $10 million that we're spending less this year than last year. Why are our taxes not going down because we're spending less? This $10 million pretty much came from state appropriations, federal appropriations, grants, things of that nature. That's why that number is so significant.
Yes, that's correct.
Make sure that people understood that.
Okay, good points, thank you. Capital budget items, this is just what is in the budget for the capital budget. So we've got the $8.4 million of beach renourishment, stormwater. This is what's ongoing for Tier 1. I'm not sure exactly what all the details are of that, but that's what is left in the budget for that. The FDEM loan projects, that's that total amount that I've been mentioning now a few times. The Estero Island lighting project. So basically, it's reiterating the things that I mentioned already that was included, but just in more detail. Okay, and then this is again, this is that FDEM FEMA project loan. Why this slide is in here is because as I was reviewing and cash flows and getting into more granular detail, I was realizing that we need to make a correction to the budget based on what's actually been spent to date or not spent to date. And so what was presented in the budget, or what's currently included in the budget, and what it needs to be, that is the final column is where it needs to be. So we actually have $236,000 more available than what was previously thought. So I just wanted to make sure that that correction would be incorporated into the new budget. Now we have a fund balance projection by fund. So we're starting out with, you can see the emergency fund is the one that sticks out the most. We have a negative beginning of year balance and a projected negative end of year balance there. And so this is one of the items of concern that we'll be addressing as we continue this conversation. But that is definitely one of the things that stands out here. The emergency fund is included with the general fund and the revenue replacement fund and the bridge loan fund. They're normally all combined into one fund. So seeing them separated like this could probably cause more concern. But when it was presented, like in the trim ad, those were all combined. So it wasn't as concerning. But I wanted to be fully transparent with you so you can see each fund where it stands. Okay, now debt service, this is one of the things that we're required to present. Here again is that FDEM FEMA project loan. It was originally $5 million. We received it up front and in February of 2024. It's an interest-free loan. However, we do pay FDEM any interest that we earn on it. And it only may be used for pre-approved list of FEMA projects. And as we do use it, when FEMA reimburses us for the project, they, instead of giving it to us, they use it to repay the loan, so it goes directly back to FDEM rather than to us. So that's a way of FEMA being, or FDEM being assured of repayment. This is a $10 million capital improvement revenue note that the town initiated back in November of 2020. The repayment date, when it needs to be fully repaid, is in 2040, so it's a 20-year term. The maximum amount that we had was $10 million, and if this was a loan that was supposed to have been used for Times Square Bayside Park and the redevelopment project or improvements that were to be done at Bay Oaks Recreational Center. But of course, then we had Hurricane Ian, and then the plans were put on hold for a lot of the things. I think Bayside Park was completed, but then we had to redo Bayside Park. And then after that, we did get the $500,000 grant from the governor. So the funding wasn't necessarily needed for that. And then because there was uncertainty as to what we were going to do, we thought perhaps we could use some of the funding to do something to create a new town hall facility by adding on to what had already been planned. But of course, that was not feasible. So the funding, the loan finally expired. I think it was in May of 2024. We did, and that was the longest we could possibly negotiate an extension for. and it was the loan itself was for very specific uses, so we could not go outside of that. So we only spent $3.5 million, and our repayment is the same no matter whether we have spent 3.5 or 10. It's the $581,000 a year, but because we used $6.5 million less, the payments will end that much sooner, and it's only a 3.15% interest rate. Okay, the DEO bridge loan, this is something that you're well familiar with now. We received it originally in June of 2023. It was originally supposed to be payable back to the state in the following year, but it was extended to year 2033. We were awarded the 11.9 million, and the balance after what we've used so far through FY25 will be $4 million. Once it's due to be repaid in July of 2033, after that point, any unpaid balance will be subject to a 10% annual interest rate. The Florida State Revolving Funds, these are the 4 loans that we have that have been very much the funding source for our Tier 1 project. So there's 2 loans for drinking water and 2 loans for stormwater. And this is just outlining the details of the percentage interest rates that we have for each one, as well as the principal balances, meaning that is the amount that we've borrowed so far. So the total so far that we borrowed is $50 million. The annual payments, and all of them combined, is almost $3 million. And all of this is coming out of the water and stormwater funds, and it's being paid for by the fees that are charged to the customers.
Joe, at some point, I believe we got a $10 million grant for this subject matter area. Is that reflected in these numbers at all?
No, this is only the state revolving loan. So this is the actual current state of that loan, of those 4 loans.
Where is that $10 million grant reflected in your presentation?
It's not in here yet. I think we have some things to figure out with that. So at the point in which we understand how it would be used, we'll certainly, we'll probably come back with a budget amendment. Okay, then now we'll just that was a presentation of the budget as it stands as far as the version of the budget that is attached to the budget resolution and was utilizing that additional revenue from the millage rate. So this is just to represent to you some of the options that are out there. So we have, if you were to keep the millage rate the same at 0.99, it would be 10.56% above the rollback rate, and it would not generate any additional revenue than what's already been included in the original budget, and that would require 4 out of 5 votes. To the highest the millage rate could be raised, with a 4 out of 5 vote, is the 1.0294 level. That would generate $177,149 of additional ad valorem revenue over and above what we would have otherwise, and that's 14.96% above the rolled back rate. And then the 1.15 millage rate, which is what this current version of the budget is based on, generates that $719,387 of additional ad valorem revenue. It's 28.43% above the rolled back rate, and that would require a unanimous vote. So we're into staff recommendations, and this is I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. In order to kind of set the stage for the recommendations, I wanted to present to you the status of the emergency fund. This is something that is just kind of a snapshot of where we are right now. So since Hurricane Ian, so this goes back to Hurricane Ian, which is there was not very much in the emergency fund at that point. With Hurricane Ian, since then, which was September of 2022, we have spent $43,545,000 of emergency expenditures. Insurance proceeds, we received $10.9 million. FEMA and FDEM reimbursements combined, we received $18.4 million. Then we had various transfers from other funds trying to shore up the emergency fund, and we were able to utilize $439,000 from ARPA, and that was to cover some expenses that were just not reimbursable that we incurred, but they were not reimbursed by FEMA or insurance. We transferred in the $2 million from our FY23 savings. We transferred $2 million from our FY24 savings, and these were savings out of the general fund. So this is less spending that had happened, that was incurred during those years than had been budgeted. We then also budgeted to add $225,000 in FY24 to the emergency fund, and then we budgeted this current year, FY25, $435,000. So those are all the transfers that went into the emergency fund. We received a total of almost $35,000 of donations. Some of that, like for example, was for the ball field, the grant or the donation from 7-Eleven, so that is reflected there. Then we have the balance. So the balance, after all the expenditures and then all these transfers and proceeds that we received, there's actually a deficit in the emergency fund of $9,039,000, almost $9,040,000. We are expecting, to the best of our knowledge, by looking at the expenses we've incurred and matching them up to the FEMA projects to the best of our ability, we are expecting about $12.2 million of reimbursement yet to come in, over the next 2 to 3 years. So there's going to be quite a lag before that money comes back to us. After let's see. Yep.
That's a huge number, and I think it's
Yes.
important to spend a little time there.
Sure.
You said a lot of things there. You said a $9 million deficit
Yes.
and the potential of money coming from FEMA. We have no guarantees from them that we're
That's
going to
correct.
receive that money. So right now, we're operating at a $9 million deficit to our emergency fund
Yes.
with no guarantees that we're going to get that money back.
That's true.
We're hopeful,
Yes.
but hope is not a strategy, right?
Absolutely not.
When you told me that number, I about fell out of my chair.
Yes.
Continue.
Okay. So
Sorry.
if
That's
we
unchanged.
No.
get the $12.2 million, then we will have almost $3.2 million in the emergency fund. So that's in the future. I'm sorry. So that is on the slide. So we do, of that $3.2 million that we will eventually have, $2.5 million of it would be $2.5 million of unspent insurance proceeds. So these are insurance proceeds that we have received for very specific reimbursements for property damage, building damage, it was very specific payments. So theoretically, we should be using that money for those purposes. So if we were to do that, then that would only leave us with $668,000 in the very end, in the future. Okay. So that sets the stage then for the recommendations. So just
Before you go on, Joe,
Yes.
not to go back a little bit, but those that may be out there asking, what's the reason for the $9 million that was spent? And I think this is a good time to point out that that's money that we had to expend for FEMA projects to replace things since Ian before you can even get reimbursed. So you have to outlay the capital before you can get reimbursed for it, or potentially get reimbursed for it. that's the reason behind that number. Is that a safe way to say it?
That's true. We have to spend it before we're reimbursed, and then unfortunately, the reimbursement takes a long time to get through the process and all the reviews. So it's very time consuming, and even just submitting it to FEMA is a very time consuming process. So staff has been working on it, since Hurricane Ian, and collecting all of the documentation, project by project, and submitting it. And of course, projects are ongoing, so there's ongoing expenditures, and it's time consuming. And it's still not completed. I mean, in terms of the projects themselves.
Joe, since we're going back a little bit before we get to the recommendations, if you could go back to slide 30, please. This is involving millage rates and required votes.
Okay.
I think your categories are interesting and potentially a bit confusing.
Okay.
When you reference the millage rate at .99, and it says generated by millage rate increase, I agree, there's no millage rate increase, there's no increase. But if you keep the millage rate the same, our revenues do increase, particularly if you're looking at the rollback rate. Is that fair?
In comparison to the rollback rate, yes.
So that's true. So do you know what that number is, by the way? If we, what the revenue ballpark?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But here's my point. You say .99, and then you use the percent above rollback, but then you say that it doesn't generate any increase in revenue. That gets a little confusing to folks. It's really, just based upon the conversations we've had thus far, it would be .99. There would be an increase generated by the .99 because the rollback rate, it's above the rollback rate. And then the next category would be, it would be really 0% increase above the current millage rate. And then the next number, 1.0294, which is a more modest increase in the millage rate. That would be, I don't even know what that is, but 1.15, which I believe is going to be the recommendation from the town manager, that's really, it's 28% above the rollback rate, but it's in essence, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 13% increase in the millage rate. I think we're kind of doing apples and oranges here as we have on this chart, and it gets folks a little bit confused.
And I can appreciate that. It is confusing. We're required to present
Gotcha.
the increase over the rollback rate,
That makes sense.
which adds to the confusion, I know.
So for folks who are watching, the .99 is a 0% increase over the current millage rate, obviously. But what's being proposed this evening, the 1.15, is a 13% in the increase in the current millage rate. Is that fair? Just so people can track?
Yes, I mean, I'm assuming the 13% is correct. It sounds correct.
Yeah, well, at least that's the premise we've been working under, at least.
Yes, I agree.
It would be 16, wouldn't it? Because if it's .99 to 1.15, it'd be 16%.
16.
Is it, okay, then I don't know.
Not-
I mean,
yeah.
I don't have that in front of me, so I'm
All
sorry.
right, just want to make sure we're all
Yep.
singing from the same hymnal
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I think to the vice mayor's, I don't want to speak for you, but I think what you're trying to get at is, although it shows that there's no increased revenue coming in, if it were to stay at .99, there is an increase, but we don't know what that increased dollar amount is off the top of your head, or how it relates to the increase in services with insurances and things like that.
We do. Cassandra, go ahead. If you have the microphone there, I know she's
Is
calculated
that what you were kind of getting at?
Well, what I was getting
But-
at is, we're really not, no one, I don't believe, is arguing that we should go back to the rollback rate. And I know statutorily you're required to portray it that way, but as we have our deliberations this evening, I think it's probably more simple to just discuss what the millage rate is and what the recommended increase in the millage rate is, because I think that's where that's kind of the platform we're all discussing right now. And I just think for just discussions purposes going forward, it might be easier for everyone involved. And then I know, again, let's set this rollback rate aside for now, because that's really not part of the paradigm that we're discussing this evening, just to avoid additional confusion, because I know it's complex. Does that make sense? That's the point I was making.
It does, but maybe I just went a little further
And
down
that's
the
fine
rabbit
too.
hole.
Yeah, I know. I
Is-
just, yeah.
Is, if you have the numbers, it would be interesting to
Yeah,
know
it
what
would be
that,
interesting, yeah.
what that percentage is and
Yeah,
how it relates to
we
the
had that
increase in
calc-
services.
Yeah, yes, gentlemen, we had that calculated into our original FY 2026 budget, was based on the .99, so I know that we do have those numbers. Go ahead if you want.
Cassandra Penner, Budget Manager.
It's not on, I don't think it's,
Cassandra
There you go.
Penner, Budget Manager, it would be $670,200.
So what, and then what you're looking at beyond that is in addition to that, right, Joe? If we, the 1.0294 or the 1.150, the numbers reflected there would be in addition to that .99,
Yes.
correct? Yeah. Sorry for the confusion. It's a
no,
good
no,
point.
I
Thanks.
totally understand that. I'm just curious at how that number correlates to the increase in services that we saw from last year. Whether it's, I think, do you understand what I'm saying? With the insurance costs that went up and all the other costs that increased over last year, how does that, if you were to stay at the .99, how does that relate to that cost? So of that, you said it was $670,000, what of that is spent on the natural increases that occurred from last year? I know it's probably you don't have the numbers off the top of your head,
Yeah,
but
I'm not even sure that it's as easy as that, because, there's fluctuations in all the revenues, so various specific revenues actually went down, like, for example,
But I think what the mayor, and I'm going to try to guess what you were saying. I think what the mayor is saying is that in essence, we don't go back to the rollback rate because of the inflationary dynamics that we have to deal with.
better way to put it. You don't have the numbers, so I don't want to belabor this too much. Go on, Joe.
I'm sorry, okay.
Joe, didn't you say too, when you're talking about the FEMA reimbursements and how long they take? I think in our meeting, you said that we literally just got an Irma reimbursement,
Oh, that's
and that
true.
was in 2017. So that's
yeah,
8 years of waiting for this money.
it can take
Or
that long,
can be
obviously.
up to, hopefully it won't be, but there's no rhyme or reason when it gets paid.
That's true, I mean, based on our experience, that's true.
They're still waiting for Michael. They're still
Right.
waiting for money.
Yeah, so,
So, our staff recommendations then, so here's the emergency fund status. So it is the recommendation that the final millage rate of 1.1500, which is 28.43% over the rollback rate, and which would generate the $719,387 of additional ad valorem revenue, be unanimously approved. And then there's also these following changes to the budget that we would be asking to be made. And then this is assuming the $719,000 increase of revenue would be in the budget. So these are just a few of the changes that I would like to focus on. So there's that $10,000 correction to the maritime WCIND law enforcement grant revenue, so that should be an easy one. And then if you just quick look at the bottom of that slide, we're also adding $10,000 of expense. So this is really reimbursement for the sheriff's services related to maritime. So we're getting $10,000 more revenue, $10,000 more expense. So that should be an easy one to approve. But now these are the other changes then that we're proposing. So we're proposing taking away that $100,000 that was added for the July fireworks, take that back out. Remove that extra $25,000 that was provided for policing for the fireworks, take that out. The Bay Oak staff that we added, the staffing that was pulled out originally and that we were, at the start of this meeting, we were saying we would add it back in. Now we're saying at the end of this meeting, based on all this information that we have, especially regarding the emergency fund, we're pulling that back out. We're adding grant, well, I'm not sure if I followed, am I saying this right? Okay, so I see. I'm sorry, I got confused with the presentation. It was just my own fault. Okay, so we're taking back out the grant matching of 458,000. So we're basically reversing those changes that were initially proposed. And now instead, we're going to take that $719,000 and we're going to split it between the emergency fund and grant matching. And by grant matching, it's to have funds available for future state appropriations. So that would be the recommendation. Let me just see if there's another slide. Okay, then there's just a couple more things to fine tune. So because we made the changes of adding more to the emergency fund, on the emergency fund budget itself, we have to show an increase of the transfer by that same amount of almost 360,000, and then show that we're adding it to the reserve. And then this slide here goes along with making the correction to the FDEM Hurricane Recovery Fund's loan budget, that we're actually increasing it by the 236,000. So this slide is really a correction. I think that's it, yep. So that slide's a correction. This slide regarding the emergency fund is what we propose to do with the additional funding. And then these were the other changes that we're proposing that we make, assuming there's, the millage rate would be approved to provide the additional $719,000.
Scott, or John, questions for Joe?
Not right now.
Vice Mayor?
Just to recap, Joe, prior to the first budget meeting, the town staff recommended a 26% increase in the millage rate as a cap as we went into the first budget meeting. And I believe at that meeting, the town council, I think really almost unanimously, I think it was unanimous, said, gave the town manager a charge, because at that pre-meeting that you all had said and presented a $1.2 million structural deficit for the town of Fort Myers Beach. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that was in part one of the reasons why you wanted that 26% increase in the millage rate. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
So then the town council gave you all the charge to say, hey, you know, everybody around here on Fort Myers Beach has to tighten their belts. I think maybe the town should give that a shot as well. And you all accepted that challenge and then presented to us at the first budget meeting $1.2 million in belt tightening measures, which again, not easy, but very professionally done, and I think demonstrated that we're willing to tighten our belt just as everyone else does here on this island, particularly post-Ian. So is what you're saying and what the town manager's saying now is that those belt tightening measures will remain in place, which balances the structural deficit, but given the impact of Ian, we need additional help for the emergency reserve fund and for matching dollars in order to enable us to get state, federal, and county grants. Is that a fair overview of what's happening?
Yes.
Yes,
You concur as well?
yes.
So the $1.2 million in belt tightening measures that were presented are still in this budget.
That's correct.
So we can say to the public, we are, you know, we've heard you and we've tightened our belts and we're making some tough choices here. But at the same time, fiscally, we've got to do something about our emergency reserve dynamic. And let me just clarify that a bit, and maybe this is just a budget nuance that you're utilizing, but I believe in our meetings you said to me that technically, and again, not all money is fungible, I know you've got certain restrictions, but that emergency reserve, I mean, in other words, if we don't get any appropriations and those matching dollars aren't necessary, those matching dollars that we've set aside would be available to supplement the emergency reserve. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, it would. If it's unspent, it just becomes part of the savings that the town council could then decide to use in whatever way it would like to use them.
Is it the intention of the town manager to utilize any savings that we don't utilize with matching funds to be utilized for the emergency fund?
Yes, unless otherwise directed by the council.
Understand. Thank you. That's all I have.
Counselor Woodson, questions for Joe?
No, I think Jim had pulled it out of you perfectly. I'm good.
Counselor Safford?
I'd like to hear from the town manager.
Yeah, I think, I appreciate the highlighting the hard work, again, that the staff has done to go through the difficult tasks of belt tightening, as you put it, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think that my bottom line is the emergency fund is what keeps Joe and I up at night, thinking about, as I talk with the staff and everybody, thinking about what this town has been through and how much money this town has had to, spend and pull out of general fund, pull out of wherever to pay for recovery needs, emergency needs right away, and then hoping for, and working very hard to get the reimbursements and the replacements from our state and federal partners, which we'll continue to do. But as I expressed to the mayor before and to others, I'm a firm believer that hope is not a strategy. I mean, I believe in hope. I think, hope is very important to have, but hope is not a strategy. We have to plan. Any of us would expect individually to always be putting money away in savings for that emergency. And I think, yes, that has been done, but this town has been through a lot and had to expend a lot, and we're in a situation now where I think, once again, we need to go to prioritizing, putting, additional revenue into our emergency fund savings as much as possible.
Yes, sir.
I would 100% agree.
Yeah, I guess, I look, when we met and you showed me that $9 million number, like I said, I about fell out of my chair. That money was spent to, as you said, Will, to spend to do emergency repairs on things that we needed to do, that we had to do based on the procedures that are in place for FEMA to be able to get reimbursed. We expect to be reimbursed with that at some point. But, if you just looked at that slide alone is your own bank account, and you went from $10 million in cash to $668,000 in cash, and there is an opportunity for you to start preparing in the event that you don't get that money, and not do that, to me, would be extremely reckless. And we still have a long way to go. The capital improvement projects that we still have out there, the numbers, if I remember, right after the storm was north of $100 million were the projects that we're still working on. If we were to redo the towers, do all of that kind of, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a significant amount of money. And at some point, as that slide shows, you run out of cash until you get money back. And to me, I think what you're asking for is warranted. I wish we would have known this before. Honestly, it's not your fault. It is, it is what it is. We're at where we're at. But to not take the steps to continue to save for the future, I think would, no other word in my mind other than reckless. Anyone else have any other comments? Would anyone like to make a motion? I will make a motion to approve the staff recommendation to set the fiscal year 2026 millage rate at 1.15.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mayor Allers, seconded by Counselor Safford. Further discussion? Counselor Whitson?
Aye.
Oh,
Mayor?
just
Oh.
discussion.
Discussion,
Public
sorry.
comment. Oh, sorry, I forgot about public comment. Yeah.
Also, I think we should need to go ahead and make the announcement as to if you were to adopt that, the impact on the rollback rate. It's just a short thing.
Okay, should we do public comment first and then,
I think, let's do the
Okay.
announcement.
Okay.
so the public knows.
go ahead?
Could we, did you still
She's gonna- well, she's gonna-
for initial comments?
Yeah, there'll be still, yes, we'll just do public comment first.
Cassandra Penner, Budget Manager, just ensure you say 28.43%.
You want me to say that? Okay.
Yeah, when you make the motion,
Okay.
just say 1.15, which is 28.43.
Let me go find the slide so I get the exact number correct.
33.
Page 33.
Okay, hold on, we'll get there.
Joe Beck. Right there.
All right, I will amend my motion to recommend approval of staff recommendation millage rate for fiscal year 2026 at a rate of 1.150, which would be a 28.43% increase over the rollback rate from the previous fiscal year.
I'll amend my second.
Public comment. Ellen?
I would like to honor, well, I would like to say thank you for all of the diligent work by all of the people involved in this. I guess I can lower this, and then I don't have to stand on my toes. Who knew? And I just encourage, I understand that in order for this to be adopted, the vote has to be unanimous. So I'm just encouraging you to all vote in the affirmative and adopt this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Tom?
I simply echo Ellen's words. We need your unanimous.
You gotta state your name.
Tom Torson, resident Fort Myers Beach. I echo Ellen. We need your unanimous consent on this, please.
Anyone else? No moral support. Okay. All right, we'll close public comment. Discussion. Vice Mayor?
Joe or Will? Maybe we'll start with Will, because these are high-level questions. Will, so just to recap what we've accomplished here, we were presented early on in this process with a structural deficit of 1.2 million. We were spending 1.2 million more than we were taking in, and the staff presented cuts of $1.2 million, and those cuts are reflected here in this budget before us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the millage rate increase that's been moved and seconded, that will be used in its entirety to either support the emergency fund and/or potential matching grants that would come our way. And that is the exclusive purview of that millage rate increase. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes.
So none of the millage rate will be going for additional spending aside from, again, the concept of an emergency fund and/or matching of federal, state, or county grants. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
John, any additional comments?
Not at this time.
The only other comments I have is for staff. I'm sure you already know, but on packet page 7 and 8, the documents still show the previous meetings number of 1.25 on the documents that you would be sending to the state. I'm sure you'll change those, but just wanted to bring it to your attention that it still shows, like on line 26 on page 8, still shows the 1.255. It wasn't updated to the new 1.15. Just wanted to bring it to your attention, but before it gets. The
Yeah, I saw it.
certification, yeah. It's on, there's two spots I noticed that it was on page, or it was on line 20, or 17 and 26 of the, I figured you probably knew, but I just wanted to point it out, just in case. It'll be updated. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. We'll update that.
All right, with that, we got a motion and a second.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can you read the title to the resolution now that we know the numbers?
The title to the resolution, yes, okay.
I think Cassandra has them if you would like.
Yes. If you have all the numbers, Cassandra, would you like to read the resolution?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final ad valorem millage rate for the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida at 1.15 mils, which is 1.1500 for each $1,000 of assessed valuation and is 28.43% greater than the rolled back rate of 0.8954 mils for fiscal year 2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund and providing an effective date.
All right. With that, we've got a motion and a second. I am an aye. Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And Counselor King?
Well, reckless is one of the nicest things I've been called in a long time, but I'm going to stand with the taxpayers that contacted me, and I'm going to vote no.
Okay, that motion fails 4-1. And I wasn't directing you as reckless.
That's fine. I'm used to it, Dan, thank
No.
you.
All right. With that, is there another motion? I don't know how much more discussion we can have. Let's ask you this, John, is there any other number besides the .99 that you would support?
I guess my concern is that I see where we put it, $4.6 million from the last two budgets surpluses into the reserves. But now I'm hearing tonight that any future money will not be spent, but I guess that confuses me. So I can't support an increase.
Well, I won't speak for Joe, but my understanding would be that that money was put in there but has been spent, and that's reflected in the $9 million shortcoming of cash. Is that,
Yeah, and that's what I understand, Mayor, but why now are we not going to be spending the money we put into the reserves, I guess?
what's already been spent?
No, what I heard, maybe I misunderstood the vice mayor was, and the town manager was, the 600 and some thousand that will be put in there will not be spent, correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Are you talking about this slide here, John?
Yes,
That's reflecting if we get the $12 million from FEMA and FDM reimbursements. That would give us a balance of 668. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
but I guess what I heard tonight was that any money that's going into the reserves will not be spent.
Well, any money, additional revenue that we receive out of the council's decisions will go to the emergency fund, and is what we're telling you.
I'm asking, did I misunderstand, Vice Mayor? I guess, I thought that's what I heard, so,
Joe, would it be safe to say that if we don't put any money into the reserve fund or emergency fund, that there is no money in the emergency fund based on this slide?
Yes, that's accurate. Yes.
But Joe, didn't you earlier say in your original budget that you were placing $500,000 into the emergency fund?
Yes.
What happened? Did that get changed?
No, it's still included in
That's
the
included in
budget.
the number.
It's still in the
So
budget.
it would be there along with anything additional that we would be adding to the fund. Well, and when I say it'll be there, I mean, it's obviously when you're adding to a negative, it's still going to be negative, but it would just be less negative.
That's a powerful statement. It's just less negative. So I guess we're at a crossroads here. John, is your position, you're not comfortable with supporting anything over the .99?
correct.
So what would be the maximum amount, if you could do the calculations, on what would require less than a
Workers' comp.
1.0294 is, okay.
That is correct, 1.00294.
Okay.
Which only is a $177,000 increase when we spent $43 million in emergency funds.
And Will, would it be safe to say if that is adopted at the 1.0294, that 177, 149 would be split evenly the same way that it was presented at 1.15?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's,
So essentially, we'd be putting 86,000, 87,000, somewhere in there, 88,000 into the negative emergency fund balance,
Yes.
okay? Well, I don't feel comfortable making that motion, quite honestly. I stick with the fact that I think we need to be at that 1.15, but I will open it up to any council member that would like to make a motion.
I feel the same way as you do, Dan. I just don't think it's enough. No one wants to raise taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. But we are in this situation. Truly, I wish it was back at the 1.25, which I know we can't go back to. But the cuts that the staff has made, everything that you've done, everything you've presented, I absolutely think the 1.15 is warranted. So, no, I won't make a motion
Yeah,
otherwise.
I think that was an important point that you pointed out, Vice Mayor. It was well articulated, is the fact that the cuts are still there. The $1.19 million cuts are still there.
1.2.
Or 1.2, just under 1.2.
Yep.
Are still there, so you have achieved what you were tasked to do. This is simply just trying to protect ourselves. We still have a month left in hurricane season. This doesn't, and then we have another hurricane season coming in before we do this exercise again next year. I think, Will, your recommendations are spot on. I think your emails that you have sent to us have been spot on in your worry that this leaves us, not that we're out of the woods by any stretch of imagination at 1.15, but we are certainly in a worse position by not having, who knows, FEMA could come in tomorrow and we get all kinds of an influx of cash. I'm not a believer that that's going to happen.
Hope
I think
is not the strategy.
Right, I think we'll see it somewhere, but I think we're leaving ourselves really open to some potential dangers. Scott, how do you feel about making a motion?
I am just wow. I guess somebody's gonna have to make the motion. If Mr. King's not moving, you still feeling that way, Mr. King?
Thank you for checking, but yes.
Jim, do you have any other words? Sorry, Scott.
No,
you-
go ahead.
okay.
I don't, but out of necessity, I would be willing to make the motion, I mean, if that's where we're at. But I don't have, my computer is shut down, so I don't have the stuff in front of me. So Scott, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind? I don't have the language in front of me. Or if the town attorney wants to phrase it for me, I'd be happy to affirm it.
So are you going with the 1.0294? Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so you would be making a motion to approve the resolution, and I believe that Cassandra does have the numbers associated with that. So perhaps the easiest thing to do would be to have her read the resolution, and that you would be making a motion to approve that resolution.
That would be fine.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final ad valorem millage rate for the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, at 1.0294 mils, which is 1.0294 for each $1,000 of assessed valuation and is 14.96% greater than the rolled back rate of 0.8954 mils for fiscal year 2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund and providing an effective date.
So
That is my-
that would be the announcement of the millage rate that's being proposed, and your motion is to,
My motion that is my motion.
okay,
I will
to
second.
approve the
To
resolution
approve
as
the-
read.
To approve the resolution as read.
Okay.
All right, we've got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? John? Looks like you're getting ready to push the button.
Just
Okay,
ready
all
to
right.
vote.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye, but not really, but I have to.
Counselor King?
No.
And yes, I'm with you. Reluctantly, I am an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously.
No, 4-1.
4-1, sorry, 4-1. I'm sorry. Sorry, John.
That's all right.
You got long
I know
arms.
you've had a tough day.
Yeah. That brings us to item B. This is resolution 25-279. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending on September 30th, 2026, and providing for an effective date. Go ahead, Joe. I think we've covered it all, but
Yes, I think we have. We would just, in order to adopt the budget, then, let me just see if I can find my way back here. So we would be, obviously this slide is now different, so it would be the millage rate of the 1.0294 and the additional revenue. Let's see, where is that?
177.
I'm sorry, I'm like lost in my own slides here.
There's a lot.
Okay, so it's $177,149 would be the additional increase in revenue. And then according to what was just stated a little while ago, we would divide that in half, and it would be $88,574. Like one amount that would go to the emergency fund would be $88,574, and then the amount that would go to state appropriations would be $88,575. We just have to have $1 off because it's an odd number. So that would be the adjustment then to, let me see.
Right there.
Okay, so this
There you
would be, the transfer to the emergency fund would be $88,574. The transfer to grant matching would be $88,575. So it would be all of these changes except for changing those two amounts. So in order to adopt the budget, then we would recommend that you approve these recommended amendments, which includes this. So what slide number is that? Slide 34, 35, and 36. But, okay, so slide 34 would be, and I'm trying to state this so that it somehow, some way can make a motion that would incorporate this. So slide 36 remains unchanged. Slide 35 would change to the new amount of the $88,574 for the emergency fund for both the revenue and the expense sections. And then here again, slide 34, those two line items, the transfer to the emergency fund and to grant matching would change to what I had stated at $88,574 to the emergency fund, $88,575 to the grant matching. So if those changes were made, that would be our recommendation at this point to move forward in adopting the budget.
All right. Any questions for Joe, Scott?
No, I guess 87,000 would probably get a swing set, right?
If you're lucky.
Maybe, the slide. No, I don't have any questions.
Counselor Woodson?
I have none.
Vice Mayor Hall?
No.
Counselor King?
I like swing sets, but no.
I do not have any questions. Thanks, Joe. With that, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 25-279 for the final fiscal year 26 budget based on the change of $88,574 to transfer to the general fund and $88,574 added to the emergency fund reserve based on Joe's comments. Is that sufficient?
That is, don't forget public comment, although no one's here. We
Okay.
just want to
I
put
will
it in the
op-
record.
I will open it up for public comment. Anyone like to speak in public comment?
Is this the final budget vote?
Seeing none, we'll close public comment. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, good motion by Mayor Allers, seconded by Counselor Safford. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm going to opine one more time. This is the final budget vote, as I
Correct.
understand it
Yes.
procedurally. So I just wanted to say for the record, with respect to my vote, I came out of the first budget hearing with a no vote because I thought I heard in part the cuts that had been presented by the town. There was some discussion about modifying those cuts, and I thought it was important to make clear to our citizenry that we were making the tough choices. I would say to my dear friend, Counselor King, In his defense, my correspondence on this issue was overwhelmingly against a tax increase, so I respect your vote. I felt like today that we continued to enshrine those tough cuts, and I felt like the increase was going to go to the emergency reserve, so I thought that made me more comfortable, which is why I changed my vote. But I respect everybody's viewpoint on this, because these are tough issues, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Well said. Counselor King?
I have nothing to say, thanks.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'm an aye. Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And Counselor King?
No.
That motion carries 4-1. That brings us to our final item. Sorry, my computer shut down. It is Resolution 25-280. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final fee schedule for fiscal year 2026 commencing October 1st, 2025 and ending on September 30th, 2026, and providing for an effective date. Joe?
Okay, so this presentation will just kind of run through the changes that were made to the fee schedule based on the input from the town council when it was presented to you at the last meeting. So it's only going to show the changes since that last meeting to show you that we did incorporate what you suggested and asked that we do. So the first one, this is probably going to be hard to read. I'm going to face this way, so a little bit easier for me.
It's on the back of the
Okay.
budget.
So personal watercraft vendor licenses are only going to go up by, I think that's a 3% increase. Same for parasailing vendor license. Beach raking permit is going to stay at $25. Beach furniture vendor license, first year is at the 3%, Cassandra, that's 3%. Beach furniture vendor license renewal, that's at the 3%. And beach furniture vendor license late fee is going up from $25 to $100. Okay, this is a clarification of the fee schedule changes for the Bay Oaks Rec Center. So youth club rec during the school year per semester or the year is $125 for the semester, $175 for the year. That was the original fee. And then on the proposed fee, it'll be $350 per year or $200 per semester. And then is that resident versus non-resident? Okay, so that was what I just read was for the resident. For non-resident, it would be $400 per year or $275 per semester. Okay, now these additional changes that I'm about to run through for you are not incorporated into the version of the fee schedule that was attached to the resolution. These came in after that resolution was published. So when you approve this fee schedule, you would need to approve it with these additional changes that I'm about to show you. So these additional changes are really all the ones regarding the building fees. So it's quite a few here to go through. So we got the concrete restoration going from $525 to $550. Roof over, $500 to $550. All driveways, $625 to $650. Dock, walkway, pier platform, boat lift, hoist in that group would go from $400 to $450. Pools, above ground, below ground spas would go from $850 to $875. Interior remodel, up to 50% of structure value, $800 to $850. Roof, re-roof, roof over, insulated pan roof, go from $300 to $350. I think maybe I'm failing to indicate whether is it residential or commercial. Is that what the? Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm not clarifying that. So those first couple at the top are for commercial, and now these next two that I read, the interior. I'm sorry. So the number of windows times 30. It's going from the number of windows at $30 each. I'm not sure how to interpret this. Maybe Frankie, you can help me describe this.
So basically, it's a per each piece on the old scheme at $30 each, based on a $50 fee added on. So our 10 window max, it comes to $350. That's just how we did the residential planning. As far as that fee goes before, all we did was take it up $20 to the new price of $50. So instead of a $350 base price, you're going to end up with a $560 base price for a 10 window change.
Thank you. Okay, so then miscellaneous change of contractors going from 60 to 75. Miscellaneous inspection, partial pass, additional inspection requested by contractor goes from 60 to 75. Inspection, re-inspection after failed inspection goes from 60 to 75. Inspection, lockout, inspector did not have access to the construction site, goes from $60 to $100. Permit extension, first 3 months goes from $120 to $135. Permit extension, the second 3 months goes from $180 to $200. Plan revision after issuance of permit goes from 60 to 100. Reissuance of expired permit, commercial not including code enforcement fees, goes from 600 to 650. Reissuance of expired permit, residential not including code enforcement fees, goes from 300 to 350. And then the reissuance of expired permit, trade, goes from 120 to 150. Then we have resubmittal fee after first resubmittal, $60. It is going from $60 per resubmittal to $75 per resubmittal. Temporary CO, certificate of occupancy, goes from $210 to $225. Single family minimum use determinations goes from $350 to $400. Accessory apartment determination goes from $350 to $400. Administrative interpretation, $250 plus $100 from each additional issue question goes to $300 plus $150 for each additional issue question. Temporary use permit goes from $100 to $150. Garage sale permit stays at $10. Development agreement, original agreement goes from $5,000 to $5,500. Development agreement amendment goes from $2,500 to $3,000. Development orders, $3,000 to $3,500. Cumulative addition or enlargement of an existing impervious area goes from $500 to $550. Any out-of-door recreational facilities goes from $350 to $500. Any one-time subdivision of land into 4 or less lots goes from $350 residential, $500 non-residential, to $500 residential or $600 non-residential. Any single building accessory improvements from $500 stays at $500. Any development for fenced or screened outdoor storage goes from $350 to $400. Any other improvement to land determined by the director to have insignificant impacts goes from $1,100 to $2,000. LDO amendment, $50 to $100. A resubmittal goes from $100 to $150. A daily rate goes from $25 to $35. A weekly rate goes to $175 to $210. A monthly rate goes from $410 to $535. Mooring field pump out. I'm just wondering. So mooring field pump out paid. Is it correctly stated? Mooring field pump out paid rented. I'm not sure that that's worded correctly, but one pump is going from one pump free for 24 hours to $5. Lost FOB, I believe, is that a fob? Okay, so the lost fob will go from 25 to 30, and then a 500-foot notification fee goes from $1.50 per strap number per mailing recipient to $2 per strap number per mailing recipient. Special exception goes from $3,800. I'm not sure how to interpret that, or $3,300.
Joe, can you
per
go back real
amendment.
quick?
Yep.
Just that last one you said, didn't we change that 500-foot notification to put that on the applicant?
That is correct. That is correct, Mr. Mayor, but that only applies to large projects when we have a developer order. If we're doing
Okay.
variances and things like that, and it's a small contained thing, that's where we're still doing it in-house.
All right, appreciate the
Yep.
clarification.
Okay, special exception, it's going to $3,800. Variance for residential is going from 1,800 to 2,000. Additional variance from 500 to 550. Variance non-residential is going from 2,800 to 3,000. Additional variance 700 from 700 to 750. Comprehensive plan text amendment, small scale going from 5,800 to 6,000. Placement of fill going from 1,000 to 1,500, with drainage plan going from $700 to $750. PD administrative amendment minor is going from 2,000 to 2,500. Hearings and appeals going to council going from 1,000 to 1,500. Zoning review from 100 to 200. Floodplain review is going from $150 each submittal after second, or $25 tradies. Valuation and scope review is going to $150, $75 each submittal after second, or 50 tradies. Valuation and scope review. All right, and environmental fee going from $100 to $150. Public works review fee going from $70 plus cost of subconsultant services to $100 plus cost of subconsultant services. F&B review resubmittal, going from $50 each submittal after the second resubmittal to $75 each submittal after the second resubmittal. Parking lot yearly inspection fee going from $50 to $75. A right-of-way permit is going from $50 to $100. Stormwater review inspection and re-inspection is going from $50 to $100. It looks like that's the end.
Scott, questions for Joe?
Just to make sure, so the parking originally was gonna go from 25 to 100, and we dropped it back to 50, is that right?
The parking sticker? Is that what you're?
Yeah. According
Didn't
to
see it in
this.
there. It's probably in this sheet, I don't think.
So
it was-
yeah, just to preface that, most of the emails I got, the two biggest concerns that I heard from my constituents was the parking fee going from 25 to 100.
50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now, it was originally 100 on last meeting, correct?
For the business owner, it was going 50 to 100. I don't think that has changed.
No,
It was 25 to 50
okay.
per individual, yeah.
Yes.
But the last meeting, wasn't it 100?
No, I don't believe it
Oh,
was.
it wasn't?
No,
Okay, my mistake. And then the raking fee, or raking permit.
that got
Which
corrected.
is-
That
Correct.
that got corrected,
Right.
just so everybody knows. Okay.
So with the increase, I know we had had discussions about opening up where you could park with that fee. Is that included in this fee increase or no?
Go ahead, Tom.
Thomas Yazzo, Emergency Services Director. Yes, that was the last direction you had given us, that you wanted to allow residents to be able to park everywhere in all spaces as long as they were parked legally within the town spot. So that was the concept behind raising that fee, to try to make up for some of that time.
Thanks for the because that's the clarification. I just wanted to make sure, because that was what I believed was happening, but I wanted to make sure it was on the record that before you couldn't park at beach accesses, you couldn't park in other spots,
So-
right? Outside of, because we changed it for out of season, but now this is going to be year round.
So normally, you could park under the bridge downtown, and you could park at any of the beach accesses
Yes, ma'am.
except for Wasted Away, which had been part of an old agreement before I came here. Now, you can park with a town resident spot or business spot. You can park in any of the spots, as long as it's a legal spot and you're parked properly and not hindering traffic at any time.
Town spot only.
Town spot only, correct.
And when will that, if we approve this, when will that go into effect? Just for clarification.
That's been in effect since you
So-
gave me the direction
yeah, okay.
before.
So we're gonna keep doing
Yeah,
that.
yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Perfect. Thank you, that's all I have. Thank you, Joe, very concise.
Counselor Woodson?
No, I'm good with everything.
Vice Mayor Adderholt.
None.
Counselor King?
I just want to say thank you for hearing what the concerns were about the increase in the beach raking and adjusting that accordingly. I think it's going to be well received, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Joe. All right, would anybody like to make a motion on Resolution 25-280 for the final fiscal year 26 fee schedule? Anyone?
Is that with the amendments?
Oh, we got a public
With the
comment.
amendments?
Yes, based on the
then For
amendments.
the building fees? Okay, yes.
Based on the amendments with the building fees.
Okay.
Public comment. There's no one here. We will close public comment. All right. Will anyone like to make a motion on the final fee schedule?
So moved,
All right. Got a motion by Counselor Safford.
with amendments.
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Final public comment? No one's here, so we will close final public comment. Counselor King?
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. We are adjourned at 6:42.